Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Ahmad Fitri bin Musa, matric number 2017889. Now, I will start the presentation of our study on IIM student behavior toward Korean Wave. The main purpose of our study is to study the attitude of IIM student on Korean Wave. It is significant to study this topic because we want to see what student perspectives are on Korean phenomena in Malaysia. It is also relevant because we want to know the effect of Korean Wave on IIM student. The problem that arises our intention to study this topic is because there is a rising trend of Korean wave among youth in Malaysia such as K-pop, Korean drama, Korean variety show, Korean cosmetic, and Korean food. The data from Statista show that 52% of Malaysians said that Korean pop songs are very popular. There are also many restaurants in Malaysia are selling Korean food now. It is show how popular Korean things now in Malaysia, especially among youth society. Now the method that we use to collect our data is we use the stratified sampling method. We collect 50 respondents from 50 students. This is including 25 males and 25 females. We are using this sampling method because we want to increase the accuracy of our data to represent our target population. We also want to differentiate the behavior between males and females in IIM Gombak campus. Our target population is all IIM student in Gombak campus from all courses. The form that we are used to collect our data is we collect our data through online Google form. This is testing that we are used are one sample test of hypothesis, one tail test, and two tail tests, two sample tests of hypothesis, analysis of variance or ANOVA, and the last one is non-parametric method, nominal level hypothesis testing.
Hello, Assalamualaikum. Myself, Khalid Hassan. Let's start with findings. Here you can see that sample from 50 students responding on whether or not they are familiar with Korean wave. So you can see in percentage of 100, 84% students are familiar with Korean wave, and 16% students are not familiar with such wave. We also received similar result from our surveys where we can see that 42 students know about the Korean wave and 8% students do not know. Moving on, next slide. Here you can see from 42 response, we found that 23 students are female and 19 students are male. And the following pie chart shows that in percentage of 100, 45.2% is male and 54.8% is female. So on both cases, the female number is larger. On the next slide, as you can see, time spent watching K-drama movies show weekly among 42 students who are familiar with Korean wave. From the bar chart, we can see that here some students spend average 5.16 hours on K-dramas. If we see the data set from smallest to largest, the middle value is 2.5 hours, which is median. And the most frequent number from the set is 0 hours, which is mode. Moving on the next slide, we can see here that time spent listening K-pop songs daily among 42 students who are familiar with Korean waves. From the following bar chart, we can see that the sample set is of 42 students. By arranging them in ascending order, we can find that average time students spend listening K-pop song is 2 hours, which is mean. And the median value is 1 hour, which represents the middle value of the data. And lastly, the most frequent value is 1 hour, which is mode.
Assalamualaikum. This is Mahumani Akhtar. My matric number is 1925462. I would like to explain about IIM Gombak student familiar with Korean things. Now I explain about cosmetics product. Most of the student who are familiar with Korean things didn't spend their money on Korean cosmetics product with percentage of 71%. On average, students who are familiar with Korean things spend 29 ringgit on Korean product. Second one is Korean food. Most of the students who are familiar with Korean things didn't spend their money on Korean food. 50% of students who are familiar with Korean things spend 10 ringgit on Korean food. On average, students who are familiar with Korean things spend 17 ringgit on Korean food. And third one is CGPA. Most of the students who are familiar with Korean things got CGPA around 3.01 to 3.5. 50% of students who are familiar with Korean things got CGPA more than 3.26. On average, students who are familiar with Korean things got CGPA around 3.33. Now, one sample test of hypothesis, one child. Null hypothesis. The mean of hours spent in listening K-pop song by IIUM Gombak student is gather or equal to 7 hours. Alternative hypothesis, the mean of hours spent in listening K-pop song by IIUM Gombak student is lower than 7 hours. One sample test of hypothesis, true child. The mean of the hours spent in listening K-pop song by IIUM Gombak student is equal to 7 hours. The mean of hours spent in listening K-pop song by IIUM Gombak student is different form of 7 hours.
The next one is two sample test hypothesis. A sample of 22 students who spend their time listening to K-pop song weekly had a mean of 12.25 and standard deviation of 9.7, while a sample of 28 students who spend their time watching K-drama, movie, variety shows had a mean of 6.57 and a standard deviation of 8. At the 0.5 level of significance, can we conclude that the mean of students who spend their time listening to K-pop songs is different from the students who spend their time watching K-drama, movie, variety shows? So the result is we reject the hash null. So the conclusion that we made is that the mean of students who spend their time listening to K-pop song is different from the students who spend their time watching K-drama, movie, and variety shows. The next hypothesis is analysis of variance of ANOVA. In this test, we want to observe the difference in the mean of the time spent watching K-drama, movie, variety shows among three groups of kuliah. We divide it into KENFs, Kuliah of Economic and Management Science, Kuliah of Islamic Level Knowledge and Human Science, and others. With a significant level of 0.05, is there any difference in the mean number of time spent watching K-drama, movie, variety shows among three groups of kuliahs? So the result we found is we reject the hash null. The interpretation is there are difference in the mean number of time spent watching K-drama, movie, variety shows among three groups of kuliah. The last test is non-parametric methods, nominal level hypothesis. In this test, we want to investigate 42 students who are already familiar with Korean things were observed after they fill in the Google form. At the level of 0.05 significant level, is there any difference in the number of students who were already familiar with Korean things on what is the gender of the idols they like most? So the null hypothesis is there is no difference between the number of students who are already familiar with Korean things on what is the gender of idol they like most. And the alternate hypothesis is there is a difference between the number of students who were already familiar with Korean things on what is the gender of the idol they like most. The result that we found is we reject the hash null. So there is a difference between the number of students who were already familiar with Korean things on what is the gender of the idol they like most. In conclusion, most of IIM students in Gombak campus are familiar with Korean teens. The main focus of our study are on 4 products of Korean teens, which are K-drama, movie, variety shows, K-pop songs, Korean food and others, and Korean cosmetic product. The suggestion that we can make is students need to make sure that their attraction on Korean wave would benefit them. For example, they can learn a new language and new culture from their attraction. At least, the suggestion to improve the study for the future research is by relating the study on the effect of Korean wave to the student academic performance. This is because the current research variable does not really dependable to observe the student performance. And to observe the academic performance through CGPA only is not really significant. That's all from us. Thank you.